In hindsight, we could have taken a lot more time and made a lot of corrections that we're trying to take now, and had those learnings maybe prior to actually launching the product. I think that in the end, it worked out quite well for us. But I think that now that maybe the market sentiment has changed, there's so much time now. There's so much cool stuff that's happening. So to stay informed, to have an opportunity to contribute to protocols that are essentially on the cutting edge, is yeah.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to another edition of Phantom Edge. I have a very special guest from a very beloved team here at the Phantom ecosystem. I have Daniel, who is a co-founder, all things tech at Beethoven. Daniel, how you doing, man? Thanks for being here.
So good, man. Stoked to be here. Thanks for the invite, Liz.
Of course, man. Of course. We were chatting off camera a little bit and different things interest you from California too. So we got to connect a little bit about that. So to kick it off, man, I want to ask you a question. I really commend builders in this space, right? Specifically to like DeFi builders. It's a really interesting, fun space, but not everyone gets to find their product market fit. So I want to ask you, what are a couple of takeaways you could share from us from a building standpoint that you've learned in hindsight, building something like Beethoven?
Yeah, man. I think that probably one of the kind of like biggest things that I've learned along the way is just to slow down, actually. I think
Mm,
in especially like in this kind of like period when a lot of stuff was happening on Phantom, it was about just getting out, getting a product launched, and getting live as soon as possible. In hindsight, we could have taken a lot more time and made a lot of corrections that we're trying to take now, and had those learnings maybe prior to actually launching the product. I think that in the end, it worked out quite well for us. But I think that now that maybe the market sentiment has changed, there's so much time now. There's so much cool stuff that's happening. So to stay informed, to have an opportunity to contribute to protocols that are essentially on the cutting edge,
mhm.
is yeah. That would be my kind of like overarching point is like there is time now, there is no
Yeah.
rush. So really kind of like hone your craft, hone your skill, become an expert at what you want to do,
Mhm.
and then you'll bring value just by default.
I think that's great insight. And obviously, speaking of building, right, you have to be obviously foot on the gas pedal, but also take information and feedback from users or markets in generals, right? So I like the fact that you started by saying slow down, especially now with what current bear market, if you will, compared to something like the bull. So thank you for that, man. And going into that bear market talk, what is something that you encourage people to do during times like this?
Yeah, I would actually just kind of like expand on maybe
Yeah.
the previous point is to really learn, right? So
Mhm.
I mean, what is it that you actually want to do? And if for me, like the thing that I've really tried to focus in on is like what do we want Beethoven to be in a few years?
Mhm.
Like, well, what are the steps that we can take, and what are the learnings that I personally need to go kind of like take on for myself, to kind of like be able to help bring us or help bring the protocol into that direction. And I think that that's something that in this period where there is less happening,
Mhm.
there is much more time that you can really kind of take this opportunity to really like dig into that thing that really inspires you. And it doesn't have to be writing code. Like there is this like dev, but there's so many layers. Like at Beethoven, Savlaki was our financial guy, and Savlaki was never a dev, but he got to a point where he was actually recognized and is still recognized in the Fantom ecosystem just by the value that he was bringing.
Mhm.
And I think that that really goes to show that essentially, especially like in this time, to build those layers, to build your skill set, and it doesn't need to be dev. There's so many things that you can do here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think it's good to kind of expand your wings, right? Sometimes we try to find one thing. I know you said become an expert in one thing and kind of be good at it, but it's also time let's dabble into different areas and see what really attracts us, right? I want to ask you,
Absolutely.
yeah, I want to ask you actually a complimentary question to that. To what should people do? Because you mentioned obviously learn, right, and educate yourself. What do you think is one concept that people should kind of, whether they're new or something that they should solidify long term in this space? Like what's one concept you think that they should learn?
Well, that's a great one, man. I think that obviously like reading a contract is very difficult. Like it is a code. It is a language that's hard to decipher. But I think that just essentially like understanding what you're doing is actually incredibly empowering and powerful because a lot of the participants in this ecosystem they have such a kind of surface level understanding, and you never need to become a like expert developer, but just by understanding a little bit of like how a transaction works, when you click that button in MetaMask, what is actually happening?
Mhm.
How does that transaction get verified? What's happening on the blockchain that actually makes this whole thing tick? I think that going into a kind of a level of awareness there it just really sets you so far apart from a lot of people and gives you a real head start.
Yeah, yeah, I'm on the same page, man. Now you mentioned Balancer Labs, right? You incubated by them. I would love to know more about what's upcoming with Balancer Labs. If there's anything that you like to share updates on that end.
Yeah, sure, man. So just to clarify, so Beethoven is what's called a friendly fork of Balancer. So earlier on, we built a relationship with the Balancer DAO, and in that they essentially assigned us this label of friendly fork that it's an official fork on Fantom.
Mm.
And in that, we've been able to build a relationship with Balancer, the DAO, as well as Balancer Labs, which is the company that is kind of the core builder of the Balancer protocol, and have been able to transition into a bit more of a kind of, I guess, a building relationship. So there is a kind of capacity that we had that maybe is a little bit different than their specialties.
Mm.
And they found that the overlap is actually quite good. So now we are actually supporting them in technology building. So how do they build
Nice.
better user experiences? And how do we leverage the technology that we built on top of Balancer Protocol for them as well? And then how do we then together actually shoot towards the bigger vision of what Balancer is trying to be, the protocol both for Beethoven and for Balancer, which is an underlying innovation layer for AMMs. So if
Mm.
you think about like what is the next DEX that's going to come, how does something like Balancer Protocol or Beethoven become a foundational piece of what they build on top of that allows them to build this innovative AMM on top of it?
Yeah, man. Sounds like a lot of fun, if I do say so myself, man. So I'm glad it's based on what you guys have built. I think this is a great, and it makes sense. A great partnership, if you will, and like you said, a very close relationship with them. The last question that I have for you, Daniel, to wrap things up is, what are you bullish on for 2023 and the years coming?
Yeah, man. I'm just kind of like just like so shocked and in awe of this opportunity to exist in this space, man.
Mm.
I think that DeFi as an industry is so young and so in such an infancy stage that there's like the potential for growth is unbounded.
Mhm.
And to be just a small participant building a protocol that people have attached to, and that has staying power to me is personally like such a huge accomplishment for me personally, and then trying to then leverage this basis or leverage this platform so that we can support new builders and support new people that are coming into the
Yeah.
ecosystem and growing Fantom as a whole. I think that there's such
Mhm.
potential for Fantom as an ecosystem. The community is so strong, the builders are so strong that we have this opportunity to grow into just a powerhouse
Yeah.
of an ecosystem that I think that I would love to kind of play a piece in, and I'm very excited to watch happen. I mean, I think that we've seen a lot of development from the foundation. You guys have been doing so much more in the
Yeah.
last months, and we're so stoked to kind of just be here and just participate, man.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's so much exciting stuff coming for Fantom, for the builders, for everyone involved. So I agree, man. And well, Daniel, I'm just honored, man. Like I told you, finally get to speak to you. Really respect your guys' focus and detailed orientation when building products for the DeFi space and for the ecosystem as a whole. So, Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today, man.
Hey, Lewis, thanks so much for the time. It was a real pleasure. Hopefully, we can do this again soon.
Of course, and for those tuning in, Daniel had a great suggestion. In the future, I think maybe you guys get to ask me the questions. So I'm looking forward to that, man. Take care,
Awesome,
Daniel.
dude. You too, man.